So hey everybody, it is the Goal 60 here for College Football Bowl Season 2017. It's been a few weeks since I made a video, and actually it's been the Conference Championship week was the last time I actually made a video and we recapped all those games. So as you know, during the season, I generally handicap nothing but Power 5 versus Power 5. So when we get to bowl season, it's kind of like the start of the season. You get less games to pick from just simply because some of those games have Power 5 versus non-Power 5 schools. But all in all, we've got about 19 games this bowl season for that type of matchup that, we can handicap and go off of our stats that we've taken all year to project stats and come up with a line that is from me. And then what I do is, as most of you know, we take and whatever I project, I compare that to the number. And I actually do everything I can not to see the number, not to hear a number, until I project my stats. I've been working on these for a couple weeks now, just off and on, and trying to keep up with everybody as far as players and whatnot, and projecting these stats and ultimately these numbers. So with that, as always, just like every video I talk about, use these any way you want to. These stats, I'm going to go over every single game, all 19, and feel free to use them, talk about them, tell me what you think, what you came up with, and just know that any of these numbers is completely my opinion. So do anything you want with them. But just always keep that in mind when you're looking at these games. These games start on the 26th, which is actually next Tuesday. Today is Friday, the 22nd, and also the lines that I will be referring to. I actually checked every one of these lines right before I made this video. So obviously they change a lot, especially in bowl season. With every day just about having a game, they look at, that people don't typically look at the game until the day of, and it may change rapidly on the day of, except for the playoffs, and that's because everybody's attention is on those. So just keep that in mind as you're going through these lines that may have changed. This is the 22nd. We've got a little over a week until New Year's Day when all the big games are played, so a lot can happen in that week. Pay attention to players that are sitting out. The last few years, a lot of stuff has happened with players as far as not even playing their bowl game. A lot of the ones that think that they're going to go higher in the draft or have been told they're going higher in the draft, sometimes sit out. They don't want to risk it. There's not enough reward in it for them to play, so some of them will actually sit out. I know a couple players, I've heard rumors that they won't be playing, and sometimes you don't know that information until maybe a day or two ahead, or maybe even the day of. Not all of these teams actually release that information, and that's one of the things that makes bowl games really tricky. Is that these teams, yes, it's great to win, but I can promise you that these coaches, winning is about recruiting. As far as their team goes, it's a bigger win to get those 3 weeks of practice before the bowl game. They're looking towards next year. They're not necessarily worried about this game in particular. So they may not even release that somebody's not playing until the day of, and if they are playing, they may not play like they have the entire season. They may only be playing half the plays, half the snaps. So just keep that in mind. These are key points that I've thought of and tried to just relaying them for information in case you're handicapping yourself or just trying to predict or whatnot. Just keep that in mind before the game. Watch for line movement. I know I talked about that earlier. As the game gets closer, the more rapid the line does change. It doesn't always change like a normal game. During the season, when the lines come out for next Saturday, they'll come out this Sunday, and then your professionals and all get on it. Usually around Tuesday or so, that game will really be set in, and then it may not change until the day of, and that's when all your normal players, your everyday people jump in, and they really start moving the line. So just keep in mind check that out as you're looking for a game. And if you find a number that you like, I would advise to go ahead and take it, simply because you never know when that line may change drastically. Money management in bowl games, just for instance, this is completely up to you. But, I'm big on units, and the reason for that is if you have a bad week, if you're betting the same or wagering the same on every single game, it's easier to make your, come back and do better. Where if you're sporadic with it, if you're, doesn't matter the amounts, but let's say you bet 10% on this one, and then this other game you bet 200% or whatever you usually do, it could possibly break you for the rest of the year. So I'm big on units, and with bowls, I generally go about a half a unit. So whatever it is that you use during the season, I would suggest, as far as just my personal preference, these bowl games with all the factors I talked about, there's just too much out there. I know some of you just want something to cheer for. So I would say about half a unit on these games, not a full. And that way you've got an interest, but at the same time, it's not going to break you if something were to happen. So obviously around the end of the year, holidays are here, so some of you may not have a lot to play with, and that's a good way to keep yourself interested, have a good time, and still not break the bank. Think about who wants to be there. So these players are a lot of times 18, 19, especially your freshmen and sophomores on the team. It may mean a little different for the juniors and seniors because it's coming down there close to their end of their career. But as far as your freshmen and sophomores, especially if it's a team that relies heavily on a freshman or something, just try to think about what bowl game they're in. Obviously, me or you may have loved to play in a game like this and get all the free gifts and gave it everything we had. Some of these guys that have been told their entire career that they're number one, they're the best thing since sliced bread, now are going to a bowl game that they don't feel like is up to their par. Maybe their team didn't do as well as they thought. Maybe they're 6-6 or something, and going to a smaller game that really they don't care if they win or lose. So just try to keep that, as a factor when you're handicapping these games. It's a big deal. So that's kind of the key factors for me. Now I'm going to go through all the games. I may go through them a little faster. So I'm going to try to, after this video is posted, go back and just kind of add some of this information in. It may not get all the information in the description, but maybe some of the key points. And as always, comment on the video, and I try to answer everything. So, if you have a specific question on a certain game, definitely comment or hit me up on Twitter, and I will be happy to tell you everything I know about the game, and maybe you could use it to help you out. So with that said, we'll jump right in. And as I said, the games do start next Tuesday. I may not go in order of date. Just when I was writing all these games down, I may have missed some on the day it came out and such, and then had to add some later. So don't hold me to dates, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure I got every game. And if not, I got 19 games to talk about here. So the first game is Arizona and Purdue. This game is on the 27th, I believe. Purdue is scheduled to be the home team. Not necessarily, obviously, it's a bowl game, it's a neutral site. So with that, I had Arizona rushing between 140 to 160 yards, with passing between 190 to 210 yards. So Khalil Tate, I feel like he'll have a good game. That puts them with having somewhere around 29 points total. Purdue, I have rushing between 150 to 170 yards and passing between 210 to 230. And with that, I have them at 31 points. So as you can see, I have it very close. I have Purdue winning the game outright, 31 to 29. I think that, obviously, if you've watched any of my videos this year, I've been high on Purdue all year. So I kind of like this team. I think the coach is a very good coach. Braum is going to do great things, if not there, somewhere else in the next few years. And so right now, currently the line is Arizona -3 with the over-under of 65.5, excuse me. So 65.5, I have it obviously projected at 60 points with Purdue winning the game outright. It's only a 4-point discrepancy between my line and theirs, or actually a 5-point discrepancy. So generally, as the season goes on, unless something just really looks good to me, you guys probably know by now that I actually, on sides, try to pick out games that I have a discrepancy of 7 or more points. And then on totals, I generally look at 10 or more points. Sometimes games just really look good to me and I feel like I've got a good number, and I will pull the trigger on it a little early. But this one, I have no play. So, like I said, I have projected 31-29 Purdue, which will be 60 total points, and stay under, but not taking that game. The next game I have is on the 28th. It's Washington State and Michigan State. I have Washington State rushing between 60 to 80 yards. Obviously, they don't run the ball a lot. They did have a few games this year where they had some very good rushing stats, but overall, they just don't run the ball a whole lot. I had 270 to 290 yards for them passing, which gave them a total of around 26 to 27 points. And I had Michigan State rushing between 175 to 195 yards, so greatly controlling the game as far as the time. I had them passing from 180 to 200 yards, so I feel like Michigan State's going to be a little more balanced than what Washington State will be. And so I have Michigan State at 31. So with that, I have Michigan State winning the game with a total of 58 is what I came up with. Currently, the line is Washington State -1 with an over-under 45.5. And actually, that's the direction I'm going to go here. So my first play is over 45.5 on the total. I feel like they will. I have a discrepancy of 12.5 points. So obviously, it's more than 10. I'm going over. So just to let you guys know, if you kept up with anything that we did on the website this year and the videos, I did official plays and I did a lot of leans. Leans did very good this year. The official plays finished in the positive. So it was a good year overall for the website, definitely. But what I will say about these bowl games is I'm treating them all like leans. And I talked about that earlier with the money management, using a half a unit. So I'm going to treat everything like a lean, and I will come back through at the end of the video and talk about all the games that I will be looking at myself. So there you go on the Washington State and Michigan State game. Next game is on the 26th in Dallas, Texas, Utah versus West Virginia. As you guys know, the last game of the year, or maybe the next to last game, Will Grier did go down with a hand injury. Can't even talk straight. A hand injury, which I don't think he'll be playing this game. He may not come back until late spring. I'm not sure if he'll be playing in the spring game or not, but that will definitely affect him as a player. So I have West Virginia rushing between 110 to 130 yards and passing between 220 to 240 yards. So not a terrible, not a big drastic letdown. I think the backup quarterback will do well enough, and actually over 200 yards for a backup is not bad at all. So I have West Virginia with 28 total points. Utah, I have rushing from 160 to 180 yards with passing from 190 to 210 yards. That is good enough to give them 31 points. So obviously I have Utah winning this game 31-28. Gives us a total of 59. The current line is Utah -6.5 with an over-under of 56.5. So I don't have a play either way here. As you can tell, I'm right at the actual posted lines for the game. And because of that, there's no direction to go there. Of course, things may change as the game approaches. And the line may move before the game, like I've talked about earlier. So this, to me, a game could become a play. But generally when I make my videos, whatever I talk about during my video is what I stick with the rest of the week. and that's the play that I go with. That's the lean that I put out. I don't change up. I don't come out and, say follow my Twitter closely for added or anything like that. I generally just, whatever comes out of my video is what I stick with the rest of the week. I try to stay like that because it's easier to document. I know a lot of people like to check on these folks that do this on YouTube and call them out and such, and that's fine. But I try to be as transparent as I can and keep everything documented. It's easier for me that way. It's easier for you guys. So that's kind of my reasoning behind that. The next game I have is Kansas State and UCLA. This game is played in Phoenix. And the reason I'm kind of telling you these games as far as where they're played, that kind of goes in, for me, that kind of goes into the factor of who wants to play. If you've got a lot of people there to see you, you got a lot of family that was able to make the trip, you're going to play a little harder than if you're traveling across the country and your team's 6-6 and you've just really not got a reason to play as far as personal level. So I think that does go into bowl game handicapping. I don't use that near as much during the regular season as I do during the bowl games. I have Kansas State rushing from 175 to 195 yards. I think they have a very good day on the ground. I think it's fairly balanced. In fact, I think it's really balanced. I have them passing from 180 to 200 yards. To me, that's good enough to get 31.5 points. And yes, I did say a half. So when I come up with my line, I stick to half-point intervals. And so that way, when it comes up, you may have a posted total of 2.5. There's a reason for that. Obviously, you can't score a half a point, but it's easier to keep up with, and I don't try to round or anything like that because to me you can't get an accurate line if you round. So I try to stay as strict to it as I can, and then when I compare my line to theirs, that's when I can do things like that. So like I said, I have Kansas State scoring 31.5, and obviously you can't score half point. UCLA, I have rushing from 115 to 135 yards, passing for 340 to 360 yards. Now, this is one of those instances that I talked about. You want to pay attention to who's playing. If Rosen was to play, I think they have a big game passing. If he doesn't play, I'm not so sure. So, I have UCLA scoring 36.5. So, obviously, 36.5, 31.5, that is a total of 68. Currently, the line is Kansas State minus 2.5 with a over-under of 64.5. Now, that is more than a touchdown difference between my line as far as the side and theirs. But there's one other thing I'm looking at here. With UCLA, not having their coach, I don't know their momentum. I don't know what they'll be thinking during this game. I actually took their 36.5, multiplied it times 90%. I felt like 10% may be a good number to pull out as far as points scored, which left them a 33. So that pulls it back down to 33 to 31.5. So obviously that's under the line. So I guess what I'm saying there is there's no play for me on this game. But that's another factor that maybe some of you, may think I shouldn't have put in or should have, or maybe it should have been weighted more. I don't know. Well, I just have to wait and see. But I do think it affects the team, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. I know during the season, a lot of times when they lose their coach, the game right after, a lot of times they actually play better. As weird as it may sound, a team may play actually better the next week, kind of proving to the school, to the fans, that they still have a heart, at least trying a little harder, even without their coach. So that is something I went in. So ultimately, I would finish this game at 33 to 31 is what I would look at. Next game is Iowa and Boston College. This is a very interesting game to me. It's played in New York. I think it is the Pinstripe Bowl, which has been played in the Yankee Stadium. I don't know if it is this year. I feel like it would be. But either way, it's in New York, New York. So I have Iowa rushing between 120 to 140 yards, passing between 185 to 205 yards. So That is good enough for them to have 26.5 points. I have Boston College rushing between 100 to 120 yards, passing between 160 to 180 yards. That is fairly good for Boston College. They've had a good year considering what they've had in the past, and that is good enough for them for 23 points. So I have Iowa winning the game somewhere around 26.5, whether it be 27, 28, something like that. 26.5 is what I come up with to 23 for a total of 49.5 points. The game lines is Iowa minus 22.5, so Iowa minus 2.5, and the over/under of 45.5. No play on that one because simply due to the fact that both of my lines are extremely close to theirs. The next game is Texas and Missouri. This game is played in Houston. It's not too far from Austin to Houston, Texas, but Missouri played their way into this game, played it with some momentum to finish the stretch. I think they lost 5 of their first 6, come out and won the last 6. So with that said, I have Texas rushing between 120 to 140 yards, passing between 270 to 290, scoring somewhere around 32.5 points. I have Missouri rushing between 140 to 160 yards and passing between 250 to 270 yards. That is good enough for them for 33 points. So obviously 33 to 32.5 I predict that it's going to be a very close game. That is a total of 65.5, and compared to the actual posted lines, I have Missouri minus 2.5 and 61 as the posted total in line, and therefore no play as well on that one. So we're coming along, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I was going to break these games down game by game, kind of give you everything that I've got, and hopefully that'll help you whether you go with me or against me. But as we come to a play, I will tell you, and then at the end of the video, I will summarize all the plays. Next game is Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State. This game is in Orlando, Florida, on the 28th. I have Virginia Tech rushing between 135 to 155 yards and passing between 155 to 175 yards, so pretty balanced offense. Good enough for 26 points. I have Oklahoma State rush between 100 to 120 yards and passing between 315 to 335 yards. Now, they've been passing closer to 400, but I think with Bud Foster having a few weeks, it actually brings them down a little bit. And that is good enough for them to score somewhere around 33.5 points for a total of 59.5. The posted totals in line is Oklahoma State minus 4 with an over-under of 63. So obviously, once again, no play there. You have to be, I want to take this opportunity to talk about just for a second. You have to be very, patient. You have to treat this as a business if you're doing this, whether you're out in at a sports book or whatever. I don't care how you do it, but you have to be very patient. It's like a business. It's like investing. This is, you can't just throw money at the wall, can't throw darts and expect to get a good return. You have to be very, systematic and stick to it as you go and adjust the system as needed. Anytime you guys, have seen from me that anytime something seems to not work, whether it be something that worked at the start of the season or middle of the season, I try to adjust as we go. And that has paid off in the long run because those adjustments are not necessarily large adjustments, even just a small adjustment in the way that something's ran or maybe the points assigned to a game, has paid off because we're patient and we try to pick out the games that really have a discrepancy and seem like we're on a better side. Okay, so keep that. Stanford and TCU played in San Antonio, Texas on the 28th. Stanford, I have rushing from 170 to 190 yards, passing for 160 to 180 yards, good enough for 30 points. The interesting thing about this game, I have TCU rushing between 160 to 180 yards and passing between 180 to 200 yards. So, which is also good enough for 30 points. So also I have this game finishing in a tie, and that's totaling 60 points right with what I projected. The over-under for the game is 49 with a -3 going to TCU. So with that said, we're 11 points off of the posted total, and that's the direction that I'm going here. Over 49 for Stanford TCU. The next game is West Virginia and Texas A&M. This is the Belk Bowl, and I'll highly suggest if you're not following the Belk Bowl on Twitter, you do so. They put out some pretty funny stuff. Keep it interesting. It's not just, hey, we're the sponsor and come watch our bowl game. They try to really, they're really hitting social media hard. So if you're on Twitter, not only follow me at the Goal 60, follow the Belk Bowl. Wake Forest comes in this game with a good year for, their coach, and they're having a good season. We'll see if they can keep it rolling against Texas A&M, who has a brand new coach from Florida State. Wake Forest, I have rushing between 180 to 200 yards, passing between 170 to 190 yards, and to me that is good enough for 32 points. I have A&M rushing from 110 to 130 and passing between 240 to 260, which is good enough for 29 points. This is another one of those situations where the coach is gone, so we'll see how the players react. This is a tough game as far as it's very close to the lines that are posted. Currently, Wake Forest is a 3-point favorite with an over-under of 64.5. So I landed right on the 3 points as far as Wake Forest, and the total I have is 61, so only a field goal and a half point away from the total. So no play there. The next game is in El Paso, Texas, with North Carolina State and Arizona State. I have North Carolina State rushing from 180 to 200 yards, while passing between 200 to 220. I have Arizona State rushing between 150 to 170 and passing between 160 to 180. So very balanced there. Once again, you've got a new coach, a crazy hire, but I will say this. Even with Herm Edwards coming in, he's keeping everybody that was on that staff. So pretty much, maybe a couple coaches I hadn't heard of, but pretty much this team will be very familiar with the coaches they have. The coordinators are staying. Everybody's the same. So, this is probably a great opportunity for Arizona State as far as getting those extra practices for next season. So I don't know. It seems like a crazy hire, but I'm just not sure how crazy or how bad it'll be or good, because we'll just have to see with ultimately the entire staff staying. It may actually be a benefit to this team for next season. I have North Carolina State scoring 33.5, Arizona State scoring 28. So obviously have North Carolina State winning the game outright with a total scored 61.5. North Carolina State is currently a 6.5 point favorite with an over-under 59.5. So no play. All right. The next game is on the 29th. It's Kentucky and Northwestern. Currently, I have Kentucky rushing between 105 to 125 yards, while passing between 185 to 215. I have Northwestern rushing between 160 to 180 yards and passing between 130 to 150 yards. Northwestern is a very, they've kind of silently got to 9-3, had a good season, but they kind of went under the radar the entire season. Excuse me. Both these teams are not used to having a ton of success, but both had good years. Excuse me, sorry. Anyways, I have Kentucky scoring around 20.5, while I have Northwestern scoring 27. The posted lines are Northwestern -7 and 51. So obviously no play there, as both of mine are coming very close to those games. The next game is a big one as far as traditional powers. USC and Ohio State playing in Arlington, Texas for I believe it's the Cotton Bowl on the 29th. And I have USC rushing from 150 to 170 yards while passing between 205 to 225. I have Ohio State rushing from 170 to 190 yards while passing between 270 and 290. So obviously the better stats on Ohio State here, which reflect in the score, as I have Ohio State win the game 37-31. Total scored there would be 68. And the posted lines are Ohio State minus 7.5 and 64.5. So obviously very close to what I have. And I think this game, honestly, if I do anything, I may decide just personally to look at would be Ohio State, because I don't see USC having very many players just playing everything they got. Sam Darnold may come out and try his best because he's got, a lot of people will start the season projected him to be very high in the draft. He really didn't have that great of a season. He turned the ball over so many times that he kind of needs a big game. He finished out on a high note in the conference championship game, but overall he needs a good game to kind of get back on the radar for some folks. So no play there, but Ohio State, if you're just looking for something, I think Ohio State would be a better option there. On the 30th, which we have Louisville and Mississippi State in Jacksonville, Florida. So this is going to be an interesting game. I do think that Todd Grantham from Mississippi State will be coaching in this game for them, as he will be going to Florida next season. But I think he's staying for the bowl game this year. And that's a big deal because he did coach at Louisville. So I don't think they left on the best terms when he went to Mississippi State. So it is kind of interesting that side of things, Mississippi State's defense versus, Louisville's offense, when it's those two on the field at the same time. Currently I have Louisville rushing between 300 to 320 yards. I think that Petrino, as sneaky as he is and as competitive as that guy is, I think he just really wants to set the tone, and they already rush the ball so well that I think they come out and really try to establish a run. I think they have a lot of offense up. I think they get the better of Grantham in the defense from Mississippi State. I have them passing between 200 to 220 yards for a total of 34 points scored. Mississippi State, I have 160 to 180 rushing yards and 150 to 170 passing yards for a total of 27 points scored. 61 total between the two. Currently the line is Louisville minus 6.5 with an over-under 63. So as you can tell, right on top of exactly what I came up with. And, I think that's going to be a game that is going to be really fun to watch. I think that these two teams have got some things to play for. And ultimately, these coaches have something to coach for here. So I think if you're just looking for a great game to watch, I think that's going to be a good one to watch. On the 30th also, we have Washington and Penn State in Glendale, Arizona. I have Washington rushing from 140 to 160, while passing between 200 and 220. I have Penn State rushing from 160 to 180, and passing between 250 to 270. That's good enough for a 35 to 29 victory by Penn State, as far as I'm concerned. And that is also good enough for 64.5. So actually 2 plays on this game. I have Penn State minus 2 and over 55. I just feel like Penn State's got a lot more to show here. I think that they have at least equal talent, and I think that they can really show something in this game. And both teams can score the ball. They've proved this all year. Both of them run the ball very good. So I think over 55 points and Penn State minus 2. So that's going to be a big game as far as my website goes. Next game is on the 30th as well. It is Wisconsin and Miami. Currently I have Wisconsin rushing from 170 to 190 yards, passing for 170 to 190. So I feel like it's going to be very, very balanced. I have Miami rushing to 105 to 125 yards and passing to 160 to 180 yards. I have this game, Wisconsin scoring 24.5 and the University of Miami scoring 21. Currently the line is 6.5 to Wisconsin with an over-under of 45. So as you can see, 45.5 is what I come up with. I'm a half point off there, 3 points off of the side, so no play. The next game is on New Year's Day. As you all know, New Year's Day is traditionally the big bowl game day for college football. Michigan, South Carolina. I have Michigan rushing from 170 to 190, passing for 170 to 190. So obviously these Big Ten schools are very balanced. I have South Carolina rushing from 110 to 130, and passing from 150 to 170. So the stats do go towards Michigan, with the score reflecting as such. I have Michigan scoring 30.5 to 23 for South Carolina. Over 43 is the play here as far as I'm concerned. Michigan is the favorite of 7.5. I have it dead on that. But I do have 53.5 score total with a 43 as a line. I think we go over 43. As also one thing to think about, these guys, this has been a few years back, but these two teams did meet in a bowl game a few years ago. We're down to the last three. Notre Dame and LSU is the next game on New Year's Day. Notre Dame I have rushing from 130 to 150 yards and passing from 190 to 210 yards. I have LSU rushing from 165 to 185 and passing from 180 to 200 yards. I have Notre Dame scoring 28 while LSU scores 31, which is good enough for LSU to win, obviously. And the line is 3, so it's dead on top of that. I have a total of 58.5 scored in the game, or actually 59 scored in the game, and the total that is posted is 51.5, so I don't have a play there. This game, I don't, for some reason it just doesn't excite me that much. Generally, that would be a big game in my opinion, two traditional powers, but there's not a lot there as far as a fan of neither one of these teams. Georgia and Oklahoma is the first semifinal game. It is played in Pasadena, California. Georgia is, their fans have started to really, how do I put this, try to get in the head of Baker Mayfield. And I can tell you guys that as much as some people may not like him, he is the Heisman Trophy winner, so he's got talent, obviously. Another thing he's got for him is some moxie. And this guy is, was a walk-on twice. He walked on at Texas Tech, transferred, walked on to Oklahoma. Both places becoming a starter the first year he walked on. I mean, that in itself is amazing. Much less going on and win the Heisman. And now he's trying to win a national championship. So, as much as, you may like him or not, you have to give him credit for that. That's a amazing story, a tremendous story for him for years to come. I have Georgia scoring 31.5 and Oklahoma scoring 34. So Georgia, I think, will be able to run the ball, but I think that there's a lot on the line here with Oklahoma as far as they're wanting to really show something. As much as Georgia somehow got the phone number of Baker Mayfield and tried, several fans passed around, I'm guessing, on the message boards and such, and it just blew up out of hand. That gives them a little bit of reason. I can't think of a time in history that's actually worked. Every time they used to do it in the SEC all the time. Tebow got phone calls from LSU. Alabama had Greg McElroy's phone number got out one time before a game. He'd come out and play the best game of his life. There's so many times that has happened, and for some reason people can't figure it out, that gives these athletes extra motivation, something to play for. And in a game like this, you don't need the other team to have any motivation at all. You want them to come out flat. So as far as that goes, I didn't handicap that part, but it is something to look at. And even without it, I have Oklahoma coming out and scoring more points. So the lines posted currently it opened up as Oklahoma being the favorite. It's all the way to Georgia -2 and a total of 60. My lines are way too close to that for me to even touch. To me, it's too volatile to even mess with this game. So I'm going to pass there. The last game to talk about is Clemson and Alabama played in New Orleans. Currently, I have Alabama rush to 130 to 150 yards. That's the same thing for passing, 130 to 150. I have Clemson rushing between 165 to 185 yards and passing between 150 to 170 yards. So obviously, Clemson with the side of the better stats, and ultimately that translates into more points as far as projecting these scores. I have Clemson winning the game 28 to 24. But also, there's some motivation here. These two teams have played each of the past 2 seasons in the playoffs. And also, Alabama came out and didn't play very well their last game against Auburn, so I think they'll bounce back a little bit. There's no play here for me. I think that ultimately the game is going to be a very good game. I think that these 2 playoff games, I think that is the best playoff matchups we've probably had all 3 years or all 4 years now in the playoffs. I think that these 2 are the best. You're not going to have Ohio State sneaking in and then getting shut out. You're going to have 2 very well played games, and I look forward to both of them. And also, I just want to say that whatever happens in these 2 games, the national championship will be played a week later. I will probably put that on Twitter instead of making a full video. I hadn't decided yet. If I've got time, I'd love to make another video recapping and also putting that game up. But if not, I will have that one on Twitter. I appreciate you guys watching this. Just to recap, I've got Michigan, South Carolina over 43, Penn State -2, Washington, Penn State over 55, Stanford, TCU over 49, and Michigan State, Washington State over 45.5. So a lot of overs and 1 favorite. That seems pretty square. But that's just what it come out when I was projecting. So good luck in everything you do. Hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and enjoy some football. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.